Welcome everyone. Welcome and good morning to all our esteemed speakers and delegates who are joining us on the Zoom and also on our live session on Facebook and YouTube. I'm Ravi Gupta. I'm editor-in-chief of a magazine called Digital Learning. Digital Learning is India's first and only magazine focusing on ICT-based innovations in education. We have been publishing this magazine since 2005 for last 15 years, uninterrupted. And we also run a portal on digital learning. It's called digitallearning.eletsonline.com. And in these periods of lockdown and corona going all around the country and also beyond India, this session is we are talking about how we can look at creative careers and how can the higher education ecosystem help enhance these career options and what are the tools available. And we have our panel here. We have a set of speakers, and we have our moderator, Shri Supreet Nagaraju, who is head education for Adobe India. So he will be moderating the session. So I am welcoming him, and I am handing over the session to Supreet to take it over. Supreet.
Yeah, thank you, Ravi, and the entire ELETS team. Good morning, all, to the entire academic fraternity of higher education in India. I welcome all the dignitaries on the call, the Reverend Vice Chancellors and registrars of the various universities on the panel today. Let me first, introduce myself. As Ravi mentioned, I lead the education practice for Adobe in India and South Asia. We've been at the forefront of, delivering cutting-edge digital experiences, and needless to say, we are putting our best to support all of you in your endeavor of delivering excellence in education through various digital mediums. I would request all the panelists, starting from Dr. Sandeep Sancheti on my left in my screen, though, if you can introduce yourself quickly for a minute, and then I can do a round robin with the rest of them as well.
Okay. Thank you, Nagaraju ji. Thank you, Ravi ji. And good morning, everyone. I'm Professor Sandeep Sancheti. I'm the Vice Chancellor of SRM Institute of Science and Technology at Chennai. I'm also the former President of Association of Indian Universities. Very nice to connect with you this morning during this webinar. Thank you.
Yeah. Dr. Venkatesh Raiker.
Yeah, I am Professor Venkatesh Raiker. I'm the Vice Chancellor of Sanjay Godavat University, Kolhapur. Thank you for me calling for this webinar. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Dr. Anand Samuel, please. So you need to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Anand Samuel. I'm the Vice Chancellor of VIT University. As you all know, now it's been recognized as one of the institution of eminence, and I'm happy to be here and discussing with you. Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, please introduce.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Ravi. Good morning, Supreet.
Morning.
It is a pleasure to be here. I am Dr. Sanjay Gupta, Vice Chancellor of World University of Design, which is India's first design-focused university. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Dr. Aditya Malik, please.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Supreet and Ravi and all my colleagues on this panel. Again, I'm delighted to be here. My name is Aditya Malik, and I'm the Vice Chancellor of K.R. Mangalam University, which is a private university in Haryana. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Harsh Sadvarthi. So you need to unmute yourself.
Very good morning to Ravi, Mr. Supreet. Thank you so much for providing me such a great opportunity, and really it will be a wonderful session today. And it's a great honor for me to join such a leading academicians of the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Harsh. Dr. Mahendra Sharma, please.
Thank you, Mr. Supreet Nagaraju, Dr. Ravi Gupta, and a very good morning to all the eminent panel members today, including Professor Sandeep Sancheti, sir. It's always an honor to be in his company. I am Dr. Mahin Sharma, Vice Chancellor of Ganpat University in Gujarat. We are a private university, but among the rapidly growing young universities in the country. Thank you.
Thank you all for a quick round of introduction. Let me jump straight into our agenda for today. Essential education for accelerating creative careers, right? And the fundamental aspect of higher education today is how do you have a new design from a curriculum standpoint that can boost employability for students at large? And how do you relook at approach towards having very clear cut learning outcomes being in place? And needless to say, role of technology is becoming more and more evident. And let me go into the fundamentals of the education that we've been delivering in this country. And I've been a byproduct myself of the higher education system, both from a government-owned institution and also from a private institutions throughout my career. Last 20 years of my experience in corporate India, I have learned consistently day in and day out, unlearn, relearn, and trying to reinvent new ways by which we can deliver excellence in the corporate space. First things first is learning is not a spectator sport. It's a two-way journey, right? And every action and reaction are equal and opposite, right? Given the fact, these are the fundamental cornerstones of education in our country, globally as well. But I think in India, it's been very prominent in different formats. Now that we are shifting gears towards technology being one of the super express highways to achieve excellence in this area, my first topic of discussion would be in terms of role of technology in delivering excellence through creative pedagogy and approaches, and online being one of the prime channel for delivery. How do we go about it? And I would like to request each of the panelists to spare a few minutes on your thoughts. What have you been doing on the how part of it to achieve these excellence? And let me start with Dr. Sandeep Sancheti to begin with. If you can take a few minutes, sir.
Yeah, sure. Supreet, thank you so much. You're talking about the role of technology and how do we promote the creativity through that. So first of all, I must admit that the new education policy has been announced recently. And I think that is going to be one vehicle for us to achieve what we want to do. In my personal opinion, it's a very strong vehicle for growth and for diversity and for creativity, because it is giving ample of opportunity and autonomy, not only to the institution, not only to the teachers, but also to the students also. So I think that is a fundamental thing which is changing. The role of technology obviously is extremely important. You belong to that domain and we are the beneficiaries of that. You support us. And I would say that digital is the way to go. Digital is the new world, if I can say so. If 10 years, 20 years back, the world was called analog world, today it can be called digital world. Digital is a technology which is universal, which unifies all of us. Why? Because if you see my speech, my sound, my photo, my video, everything which is coming to you is through a digital technology, not through any analog mode typically. And why it is important for us is basically it is easy to handle, easy to transmit, easy to store, easy to process. And therefore, I can say that digital is something omnipresent and it's a new way of life. If I just give you the examples of that, today my communication, which I'm doing right now, my television, my banking, my media, my, you can say photography, imaging, or whatever other things, everything is digital. And very soon, I believe that we ourselves will be digital. Sandeep Sancheti will not necessarily be known by Sandeep Sancheti alone. He will have or she will have something, a digital identity or number. And therefore, this is the presence of the digital world, and education will also be getting impacted. And with this impact, I would say a lot of diversity can be delivered to the students, a lot of freedom can be delivered. With the analog mode, it was not possible. With the digital mode, it's possible. And therefore, you can possibly say that the world is going to change with the advent of what we call digital world, as well as the new education policy. And then one thing which will drive creativity, in my opinion, would be if you have seen the very first terminology of the new education policy, it says ABC, Academic Bank Credit. In the terminology, they have given the short form and acronyms. And that is called as a scheme which we were working, National Academic Credit Bank. which takes the freedom to the lowest level by mixing skilling, by mixing designing. You're also talking about that, by mixing taught courses, by doing the laboratory courses, by doing industrial activities, by doing MOOC. So all this amalgamation of all these modes possibly will be in the favor of the students, in my opinion. And everyone in the system will learn. A vice chancellor will learn, a teacher will learn, a student will learn, and they will satisfy the quest for their knowledge. And in the process, they'll develop the new knowledge. And hopefully, the world will be better as far as the knowledge generation, dissemination, and assimilation is concerned. This is my initial take. I won't take much time because I put some time restrictions right now. Thank you.
Sure, sure. Thank you, Dr. Sandeep. Dr. Venkatesh Raiker, over to you, sir. Your thoughts on the role of technology and creative delivery. So please unmute yourself.
Yeah, you asked me same, na? Your application of technology in this creativity.
Role of technology.
Yeah.
Role of technology in the classes and creative delivery. Yes.
Yeah. See, any institution, for your kind information, is meant for three purposes: knowledge dissemination, knowledge creation, knowledge applications. So in all the three reasons, we have to take care of the technology usage. Because knowledge dissemination, I think all are talking about online education, usage of lot of learning management systems, things are going on. But nobody is thinking, or most of the, I think, except IITs or some IIS and all, the affiliated college, nobody is thinking this COVID time about the knowledge creation, knowledge applications. I think for that institution, for that matter, for especially to take care of knowledge dissemination, knowledge creation and knowledge application, I think the institution should have, product development center, instrumentation lab, fab labs, learning factories with the help of proven institution of national and international repute. So that the virtual laboratory work and tie up and collaboration with the other industries through this virtual lab, I think the student will be shown or given interest to work in the first year itself of the program he joins. Innovation lab. So innovation lab, I think most of the technical institution or the higher education institution, our focus is mainly on theoretical subjects, like 75%. As per my knowledge, it should be 50-50. The first 50% should be theory and 50% should be laboratory. So using technology, and another thing I want to say here is that today is the need of interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary and transdisciplinary. I think Professor Sanjay told the national education policy is focusing more on transdisciplinary approach. I think how the technology can take care of the transdisciplinary approach, that is the need of the hour. Not only the monoculture knowledge for particular program, those have become obsolete. So transdisciplinary is the needed. So I think the laboratories are to be established if you want to give a more creativity and blended learning concepts. I think that is the need of the hour. Simply just focusing on monoculture knowledge about a particular program, that will not work out. So I think every program students, they should learn the niche areas like, what people are talking about: artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, data analytics, irrespective of the program. I think future world or today world is a disruptive technology, VUCA world. I think all higher education institutions should be geared up, usage of technology, especially on disruptive technology. This is about my view. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Raiker. Dr. Anand Samuel, you represent an university which is an institution of eminence. Now, I wouldn't be dwelling with what is the role of technology with you, but I would rather like to take the discussion to the next level in terms of a specific point, which is about digital experience with impact and scale. Can you share your thoughts on how are you going about it, and what is your guidance to aspirants in this space of institution of eminence?
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And first point that I would like to drive home is that now all of us should understand that we are dealing with students who are now called as Generation Z. So unless otherwise we have that in mind, maybe we will not be able to understand the digital concept or whatever that we talk about digital. See, the Generation Z students, they always want everything in digital format. They are all netizens, and they don't like to read textbooks in the hard copy form and so on and so forth. So they are the students with whom we are dealing. And so it's good. This pandemic has driven us to this extent so that, it becomes conducive for them. I don't know whether the the kids sitting there, they understand this feature or not, but we know that as elders, this is what they want, and this is the form in which they want, and so we are in the right frame of work. That's number one. What about the industries? We know pretty well that the whole world is moving towards the digital digitization, and maybe in another 5 years' time, everything will be 100% digital. And so why is that we are not talking about 100% virtual university at this point in time is one question that I like to place it before everybody. And we have started working on it at VIT 5-6 years ago. And at this point in time, I would say 93, plus or minus 1 or 2%. We are automized and we are digitized, and only few percentage like examinations. Still our mindset doesn't accept online mode of education. So only on that account, it's not there. That is another point. And the industries are always have started moving towards digital mode. And I don't think any of our students, when they join the company, even on day one, they don't carry pens and pencils and pens at all. It's all in the digital mode. Okay, so now what is important is that am I training them for that kind of a work scenario? And so the industries are saying to us that, we don't want your CVs and all that. What is the knowledge they've acquired and how much of marks they have scored and all that? We want to know the digital footprint of the students. Now, that's what the companies want. So we make sure that in their 4 years of stay here, now if it is a BTech student, in their 4 years of stay, now how much of digital exercises we can give them, and they can get access to it, and then get experienced in that, and maybe form maybe a small or say a pen drive consisting of all the digital footprints what they have done, and things like that. We are working on these lines, and our students, when they go out with an excellent digital footprint that is liked by the industries. And another point, very, very important at this point, is that we somehow we're only talking about knowledge, and so on. But time has come where all the industries, they appreciate that it's okay, knowledge is fine. There are other skills which are required. It's not only just cognitive skill that we are talking about. And they want affirmative skills, psychomotor skills. How are we incorporating it in the digital mode? Now, that is what is very, very important. So we are now training our teachers how to incorporate, how to inculcate these two also, in addition to cognitive skills, is another feature that we are taking into account. And the last point, maybe I can go on and on. The last point is that the industries are not just interested in knowledge alone. No, it's what I think all of us know about Bloom's taxonomy, but how much we are bringing it into the classroom situation is a big question mark. It's application skills, analyzing skills, synthesizing skills, evaluating skills, creating skills. All these things have to be inculcated in the curriculum, in the classroom situation, and it has to be evaluated. And if that is done, it will be good. This is what we are doing at VIT, sir, in terms of digital.
Thank you, Dr. Anand. Dr. Mahendra Sharma, over to you, sir. If you can share your perspectives of what is the role of technology specifically from your region. You come from the western side of the India, the Gujarat belt. How are students looking at technology in your region, and what are the things that you've been doing as a leading institution in your space?
Responding to your specific question, there are two things. One is the situation we are all passing through, this pandemic situation, and because of which we shift to online mode of education, teaching and learning. Teaching has happened, students have adopted, but when we talk about comprehensive learning, that is the overall development, which is inclusive of engagement into activities like sports, culture, and co-curricular and extracurricular activities. Those have been impacted. One way teaching has happened, but the overall personality development has been a question, and which has to be reassessed, and how technology can be blended further to harness its maximum benefits. But if we forego this aspect of the pandemic situation, technology anyway was making inroads. And as rightly pointed out by Dr. Samuel, that this generation was adaptive to technology. So it was not something which came all of a sudden and it was a new thing. They were already using smart gadgets. They were already having access to all kinds of available tools. And what we realized that its impact has to be taken into hands-on learning. That is, in each of the curriculum that is being delivered, hands-on learning has become very much essential, because today employers, particularly if I look at the automobile hub which is getting developed in my backyard of the university, just 30 kilometers from Suzuki to Ford to all the big giants, Honda, everybody has set up huge facilities. They have tremendous requirements. And you will be surprised when Tata Motors came to Gujarat and they had a need of 10,000 ITI and diploma engineering people. They advertised, they conducted a written test, but hardly found 70 eligible. So it was covered in media in a very big way that the blending was not happening properly. And Gujarat is now turning into an automobile hub in a very big way. So there has to be hands-on. So what we did, we in-housed Japan-India Institute of Manufacturing, where an automobile assembly line has been put. Suzuki has invested 20 crores from its CSR, and students get hands-on learning into assembling and disassembling a car. So, and there are 49 people from Suzuki who participate in the laboratories and workshops in automobile. So that is something where we need to go nearer to the industry, and problem solving skills have to be worked out. So three-tier problem solving has also been initiated. One was what the professor would give you as a problem. The second, you take it from the industry. And the third is you take a societal problem. So that's where the use of technology and its blending with the experts from the industry. And that's where the whole concept of centers of excellences in each domain came, and where institutions now have working centers of excellences. And industry is also asking for hands-on learned students. So it's impact. It's like full curriculum is undergoing transformation, and universities have to redefine the way they have been teaching. And there is not a single jacket solution for all. It has to be tailor-made given the requirements of the discipline, and that we have been working on. And when we talked about this virtual environment, we realized that employers had their own issues because they were looking for certain skills. So their satisfaction, to meet their satisfactions on skill requirement, we have to still work out the methodologies, which we are thinking how we can innovate and satisfy the employer's need. And there are students who are physically challenged. So there are issues coming from those students also, how to take education to them in this virtual environment. And the responsibility of the parents and students have changed in a very big way. We have to train them also. So overall, in Western India, we have actually tried to adopt, but it's a long journey, and it's a
I think we've lost connection with Dr. Mahendra Sharma. Can you hear us? Hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear us, Dr. Mahendra Sharma?
I stopped that. It's a long journey,
okay.
And efforts are being made. Yeah.
Right. Thank you for your insights, Dr. Mahendra Sharma. Really deep insights on the three-pronged approach that you took: student perspective, industry, and the societal side of it. Over to Dr. Sanjay Gupta. You've been a veteran in the university design side of the fence. So, largely from creativity and creative delivery has been something which has been a business as usual for you for ages now. Technology is always been a second side of your coin. What is the next generation creative delivery looking like for you? What mean to you in your space?
As you said, it is the other side of the coin, because traditionally the design education, as it is happening in our country, technology and design used to be two separate ecosystems. The twins shall never meet, Till, of course, the computer-aided design kind of came in, and people started talking about CADs, and there used to be separate subjects on CAD, and till 2 years back, when we started, I was looking at technology intervention way beyond that, and I was thinking about all these new technologies like AI, machine learning, blockchain, IoTs, 3D printing, and all these coming in. And I've been talking about all these, that these technologies cannot exist in isolation. They have to work with design to create the new imaging system. And what has happened is, I think in that way, I look at it as pre-corona system has completely changed how corona has been able to bring back the technology thinking in our minds, because what we were planning would, or what we were thinking would happen over next 3 years, 5 years, has happened over next few months, has actually already happened, right? The adoption has been very, very deep and very inclusive. We ourselves, most of our teachers being from the traditional education system, it just took 48 hours for them to convert everything into going online and teaching the system, teaching all their students online. Students were, of course, very fast. They are equipped with all those smartphones. And even though a lot of them came from areas where connectivity was an issue, smartphones sort of emerged as the go-to device because everything can be done on that. And we had to make use of all kind of available technologies at that point, including these learning management systems. But of course, regular emails, the WhatsApp kind of sharing devices, if nothing else, texting and sharing. And the experience over the last 4 months has been that design and technologies have met. The deliveries can be done. A lot of things which used to happen in studios and in laboratories where materials used to be standard here, the teachers had to innovate because somebody was sitting in Tripura, the other person in Mahabaleshwar, and third one in Jaipur, and the materials would be different. So one of the outcomes was that we again used an e-commerce system to get all the materials and stationery available to all of them. But that happened after 2 months once the online deliveries opened up. Then we began to use the local available material, and then the teaching again had to go a creative change in the sense that local materials were put into use. Parallelly, then I started, as a university, to get our design thinking people into new emerging technologies. So last year we did a workshop on artificial intelligence for everybody, all students, all faculty, to get them to understand that what is AI and how is it going to change our lives. So that was put into practice, so much so that this summer we offered that as an online course for design teachers of other universities. So we had faculty joining from NIDs and IITs and other systems on our online course on artificial intelligence and design thinking. So I think what we are looking at is these new technologies. Whether I don't just look at technologies because they are technologies and they are data systems, which are two different things. But all of these, whether you're talking about cloud computing or user experience or algorithms or artificial intelligence or IoT on the technology side or in the data side, talking about languages like Python or maybe deep learning or NLP, I think all of these are human-centered things which are going to change the way design has been practiced and taught in the country, and we must all then need to get into it. So I think this has come out of this COVID situation, is that the pace has accelerated and our focus has been brought squarely onto this. That future is certainly going to be a blended future, and this is going to be incorporated.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sanjay. Dr. Aditya Malik, you represent young multidisciplinary, relatively young multidisciplinary university across, and and equity of different departments has been fairly high, and it's not a standalone focused subject university. We've got a fairly widespread across. And what are your thoughts? You've been in different parts of the world teaching in different styles of approaches, and now in India we're looking at a revolution in a different sense. So what are your thoughts here, sir?
Yeah, thank you. That's a wonderful question. Been thinking about this a lot, and I'm sure everyone has been thinking about this also. How do we respond? And I think my colleagues have pointed out, and you've asked about the use of technology, clearly very important. And there are dimensions to that we don't know about yet. I mean, certain dimensions to how we will actually produce certain kinds of results. So what the possibilities are in technology are still to be explored, at least in the context of education. And I'm sure they'll also change rapidly, the kinds of platforms or what will be available. But I think also looking at the experience of, what's been happening in the last 4 months through COVID, and of course, many people and faculty have adapted very quickly to new situations. But what is it that, again, in terms of education and learning, just from my point of view, what is missing or what is important? And I think that apart from technology, and of course the uses of technology and the great, the great spread of the possibilities of technology, there are certain kinds of skills, I think, that are necessary. And those skills are not necessarily content-based, if I'm making myself clear. For example, things like, and this is also, reflected in the new education policy, critical and independent thinking, multidisciplinarity, like you've said just now, or transdisciplinarity. And one has to ask, why do you need these kind of skills? Because clearly you cannot understand what's going on in the world around you just through one perspective. And you need, as a student or as a learner or as a teacher, you need to widen these horizons. So I think being aware of what's happening in the world around you from a variety of perspectives is very critical or very important. It's something that employers also want. The second thing in terms of these so-called soft skills is communication. And I don't mean communication in the sense of passing on information. That's one way of thinking about communication. But communication is something that is very powerful to resolve issues and problems and matters that we're facing through communication. And that communication is also something that gives you access to performance. I think one of the things that we're all looking at constantly is performance. All institutions, corporate world, everyone teaches performance. But we have very little exposure or inquiry into what gives you performance. So I think that's, again, a kind of an area of skill that one can, look at and get into. The other thing I think through COVID that's become very clear is how do we all as human beings deal with uncertainty and unpredictability? And how do we respond to these sort of situations? Because this may not be the last one, and we don't know how long it's going to go on for. So how does a student also equip themselves with being able to respond powerfully and open up new opportunities in a situation of uncertainty and unpredictability? And then, of course, there's the mastery of digital techniques that is very important. So if I can put that into a kind of a nutshell, I'm not sure if this is putting it together properly, but transdisciplinarity, then relevance, that has to somehow come through in what we're doing and teaching and learning, and resilience. So being resilient, being able to find out what is relevant, having transdisciplinary skills, and then also developing, of course, research and responsibility. So it's all ours at the moment to sort of talk about that.
I get it.
I think that's basically what I'd like to say, and apart from the use of technology, and then we have to find out, how does one get this across within the parameters of new technologies, these areas.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Malik. Dr. Harsh Sadhwati, you represent a part of the country which is extremely fond of doing new things, and they are not so caught up about new skills and new means of trying things in life in Punjab and the northern part of that part of Punjab in the north. What are your thoughts? How has it been? How is technology playing a crucial role, or is it a mixed opinion? And what are your thoughts and your action plans, if any?
Yeah, thank you, Supreet. So, as we all know, technology has impacted almost every aspect of life today, and education is no exception to it. And we know the COVID times, when in 48 hours we adapted to this technology. And we know our Indian mentality, with when the crises are on, we are fully ready with it. And now, with the post-COVID times have started, uh, almost all institutions, they have developed their own learning management systems and blended with all enterprise resource planning. So being a university, industry-driven university, so we have done a lot, like it's a multidisciplinary university, and we have got more than 80 disciplines, and collaborating with the industry and teaching industry-based curriculum that every university is doing. But with a difference, like we provided all upskilling the students with the certification in each semester. That was very important. And as we all know, technology has profoundly changed education at all. For one, technology has greatly expanded access to education. And as we all know today, massive amounts of information, they're available at one's fingertips through the internet, and opportunities for formal learning are available online worldwide through MOOCs, podcasts, and traditional online degree programs as well. So the access to learning opportunities today is unprecedented in scope, and thanks to technology. So opportunities for communication and collaboration have also been expanded by technology. Now we are all talking about student-centric approach. So today technology enables forms of communication and collaboration undreamt of in the past. Students in a classroom in the rural India, for example, can read scientists' blog, video, even talk to live with the scientists via video conference. It's all thanks to technology. Students can share what they're learning. It's a collaborative learning. They can work on common virtual projects. So students can collaborate on group projects using technology-based tools. So the walls of the classroom are no longer a barrier, as the technology enables the way of learning, communicating, and working collaboratively. So now teachers' role has been totally changed from teacher-centric approach to student-centric approach. Technology has also begun to change the roles of teachers and learners. In the traditional classroom, the teacher is the primary source of information, and the learners passively receive it. But the model of the teacher as the sage on the stage has been changed to guide on the side. And however, because of the access to information and educational opportunity that technology has enabled in many classrooms today, we see that shifting of this role. And the universities across the countries are beginning to redesign learning spaces to enable this new model of education, foster more interaction with small group, and use technology as an enabler. So technology, we all know now, it's a very powerful tool that can support and transform education in one way or another, for making it is easier for teachers to create material by enabling in new ways, doing some innovative things to learn and work together to make education system very interesting and exciting. And with this worldwide reach of the internet and ubiquity of smart devices that can connect to it, a new age of anytime, anywhere education is dawning. So now it will up to instructional designer and educational technologies to make the most of the opportunities provided by technology to change education so that it will become effective and efficient education for everyone, everywhere.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Harsh. That's pretty insightful. Let me move on to the next, topic for today. And one of the common problems that I keep hearing from many of the education leaders across the board is curation of talent, readiness to deliver high performance at scale. And given the current situation of technology being the front seat of delivery mechanism and not technology for the heck of technology, how do we look about, or how do we go about curating talent? Point A, on your faculties and upgradation in the delivery mechanisms. Point B, in terms of student at the other end as a recipient, and how do we look at curating talent? If each one of you can spare a couple of minutes on this, and I'll start with Dr. Sancheti to begin with on this.
Okay, thank you. I think you have now come to the processes from technology, that how do we curate all that we want to do. And once again, technology cannot go away. For example, if we are talking of high-end professional courses, those were not allowed in the format in which they are going to be delivered now. For example, the distance or virtual or online mode for engineering programs was not allowed. So one of the missing link was that the laboratory or hands-on or the skills part cannot be done by them. So today, with the technology, once again, we can do all the skilling directly through the online mode also, or digital mode. For example, haptics can come into play. Some of the biggest training tools, for example, aircraft simulation or aircraft flight simulators, are nothing but the simulation. Same goes with the medical terminology, where the medical dummies and mannequins are there. So digital technologies are available. That means the entire thing is an open platform. And with that open platform and with that open access, and as was being said by Harshji also, this technology makes it anytime, anywhere, any mode, all that, any language also. So why shouldn't we give the flexibility to everyone? I think that is how we will curate the talent. As a normal teacher, would have suppressed a student's talent, because I'll say, this is the syllabus, this is what you have to cover, and this is what you have to compete with, and this is what you have to get as a marks. But today it is not so. I can deliver examination on demand. I can deliver individual examinations which are there. I can do many things which are there. So teaching learning can happen effectively. The laboratory part can happen effectively. And then obviously the examination can happen effectively. Examination for curating good, you can say, product out of the institutions would be people who can apply their knowledge. And therefore, I'll generally tend to use or promote the use of open book examination system. And with open book doesn't mean that I carry a heap of books in my examination center and keep referring to them and losing time. No, it's basically applying my knowledge is what open book refers to. However, you don't have to remember a formula or a figure or derive something while you are in the examination, and that's why it's open book. So I think that will promote excellence or the new type of education, creative thinking. That is one thing. Talking about the same examination, I'll probably try to do the group examinations. That 30% of my marks will come from my group performance. Let's say today's performance of webinar will be weighed and will give us how well we have done. 30% will come from that, and 70% will come from your individual performance. That again will promote the quality and the competition and raise the average level which is there. Then of course, examination on demand. So what I'm trying to say is, make it highly student-centric is my opinion, but we are not going to run away with the standard programs or full-time offline programs. Those who are not capable will go through the routine. Not everyone is sailing in the same boat, but those who are capable, we will not suppress them. The world will be theirs. They can do wonders with that. They can go slow, they can go fast, they can choose weird combinations. I'm using the word weird because sometimes we don't allow the combinations they seek and we say this is not there. So creativity will be coming maximum once they do what they want to do, as was being said by Professor Anand also. Generation Z, or even people call it Generation Alpha these days. I don't know how to differentiate, but whatever they need is what we need to deliver. And I think education sector is now ready to do that. That is how we'll promote the quality and the acceptability and the readiness of new talent. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sandeep. Dr. Venkatesh Raiker, your views on curating talent with technology being in the forefront. Yeah, kindly unmute, sir.
Yeah, once online education started, everybody is bombarding e-materials to the students. And most of the institutions removed the teachers, because instead of 4 teachers, now 1 teacher is taking care of 100 of students. Whether learning is happening or not, nobody is observing. Simply covering the syllabus, exam point of view. That is the fate of this online education, as per my knowledge goes. I think Sancheti sir will agree with me or not. Simply bombarding and telling that these e-materials are available, e-MOOCs are available. How the boy will digest it? So I think to make the students learning effective, and we talk about Professor Harshaji told student-centric, personalized learning. I think that before taking the classes, we should assess the students by conducting some MCQ types. What is his knowledge about that subject? Otherwise, there's no point in bombardment of all materials. Then we can make the groups slow learner and the advanced learner. If you do it like this, I think we do the justice for the students. Otherwise, simply covering the syllabus and telling the students, that's one thing. Second thing is, then apart from, because, any curriculum is based upon knowledge, skill, and attitude. Knowledge is everywhere is available. Because of this online, everybody is exposed to the online education. The students, parents, teachers, we are also not knowing online what exactly the online. Everybody learned it. Then the expert lectures and the skill, because in this generation, the skill enhancement is the most important. The lifelong learning skill, the critical thinking, then what you call leadership skill, language skill, then life skills. These are important. How to percolate these skills to the students? Because without skill in this generation, people cannot survive. Knowledge can be get from any sources, but here in this education, creating in this thing online e-material, I think the skill is to be given more importance. How to give the skills? I think Professor Santish told collaborative, doing some projects online, discussion, then what you call project-based learning. I think these are the needs of the hour. Otherwise, after simply bombarding learning, it will not work out. I think the skill sets are most important in this online education, and how to give the skills which are required as per the industry 4.0, or it may be society 4.0, or education 4.0. The cognitive skills, the critical thinking skills are most important. I think in this regular teaching learning process, we have to conduct project-based learning, experience learning, to imbibe these skills in terms of group activities. This is my approach, and this is my views about this your question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Vaikar. Dr. Anand Samuel, your views.
Correct, Vantalaga.
Okay. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
So when you're talking about curating the faculty and the students, preparing them to face the digital world or digital initiatives that we take at VIT, maybe I'll just project 5 points. One is for the faculty members, how do we create the talent, what's required, and train the talents, and then in terms of students, what we do. The first one, with regard to the faculty members, 2 things we do. One is creating the facility. We have already established a world-class studio where online lecturing can be done, and we have done extensive methodologies, followed extensive methodologies, different pedagogies, tools which we need to use in online courses and so on and so forth. So the facilities, it is needed, and that will definitely equip the teachers, and we already created. The next one is training them. Nowadays, when the teachers are asked to go for online teaching, they didn't accept it because they think that online teaching is nothing but instead of going to the classroom, you sit before the laptop and then teach for 1 hour full. If that is what is being done, our students will get frustrated. And that's not what this online teaching is all about. No, it's a different technique altogether. You cannot be talking for more than 20 minutes to students through online mode. So it's a different technique. So we are training all our teachers to make sure that they do real online teaching with 20 minutes, 25 minutes of teaching, and then other activities and so on and so forth. So these 2 we do to equip our teachers. And coming to the students, for students, we don't have to do anything different because they are already netizens and they want this and they are already into it. So that's one point. But at the same time, to make it more effective, for making learning to happen, it is necessary that 3 points that we understand. One is that as long as this is part of the curriculum inside the classroom, within the boundaries, under the control of somebody like teacher and all that, they're not going to do anything, they're not going to learn. So it should be outside. So we are making sure that that feature we are bringing in. Now, I'm sure that all of us know about hackathons, right? Taking an industry problem and making your own industry list, come and explain that to them and allowing the students to join together in teams. But right now it will be in virtual teams. we are doing it, and already even in Delhi, they conducted one in MHRD, and our students were one who won it. Now we are very happy about it. This kind of activities, hackathons in a digital mode, and when the outcome is told to them, they are happy about it. The outcome is not in terms of the degrees and the grades what they get. This is everybody is getting. They should know about what is extra that they are getting. So when the students, when we say that when you do all these things, you can be more creative, and that's what happens when you go make them come out of the classroom and then think on their own. They become more creative, and we make them do research along with the teachers. And last 5 years, I'm very happy to announce that we have more than 500 plus journal papers coming out of our UG students, not even PG or PhD students, UG students. And these are the outputs which will motivate them to get into the digital mode, and it is happening. I think that's what we do. It will be good if others also do that.
Thank you, Dr. Anand. Thank you for your insights. Dr. Harshad Dwati, if you can share your thoughts.
So I completely agree with our senior fellows regarding all the teaching, learning and online systems, learning management systems, and focus on critical thinking. This is very important. Problem solving techniques the student should learn, and the entire focus should be on the solution of the student's problems. And the prevailing situation should be considered the new normal, and all the efforts should be made accordingly. And for addressing the concern, 5 W's, who, what, where, when, and why. These are very important for any student to think and to create, to innovate new ideas. And 2 H's, how and how much should be considered. And even while the virtual mode, the concept of management and leadership should be considered. Management is doing things right, and leadership is doing the right things by Peter Drucker, leadership by example. So every action should be a tinge of innovation, innovate or evaporate. So the online technology-driven virtual no-contact system is an ideal new tool to make the education delivery to the students. It is more efficient and more productive, developing new improved professional skills and knowledge through online learning and assessment. Of course, training of teachers is very important. Training teachers to treat the adoption of technology as part of the education. It is also to reskill and upskill the teachers as well. You have to develop trainers, and students, they should work and collaborate with students to develop new ideas, create new products, and innovation and inventions type subjects and critical thinking to be started from the first semester as well. And providing hands-on experience to teachers as well as students in the online education and with the new softwares and resources is also very important. And preparing video modules for education and about virtual experimentation such as growing crops, developing machinery, experimentation in labs in different domains, architectural design, etc. It will be of great importance with this technology.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Harsh. I like the specific punchline of innovation or evaporate. Thank you for that contribution. Dr. Sanjay Gupta, your thoughts on curating talent, specifically for the digital experiential learning part. Your thoughts.
Curating talent with a digital or maybe technology perspective in design has always been a challenge. Traditionally, when we talk about all these technologies, people say it is best learned by those who come from the science or mathematics background. And almost very few people in design would come to science and technology, mathematics background. So that curation has been a problem. But however, creative field is very diverse today. So if you look at architecture, which is also creative, there's a lot of technology inputs, and you find most faculty members there would come to the science and technology and mathematics background. But if you look at design, it starts from, on one end, industrial design, or maybe automotive design, and on the other end, fashion design. So there's a complete range in between of expectations and backgrounds from which the faculty emerge. And on the extreme other end, you have visual arts, where primarily there are people who have almost never done anything with mathematics and sciences. So between these, to curate talent become very challenging. I think one of the perspectives which we work on is, if you are to drive a car, what you need to know is, when to change gears, how much to accelerate before you go from first to second and from second to third, and how you de-accelerate. You need to know how to drive the car without knowing how it works, without knowing what it goes under the bonnet. So technology has to be taken up like that by these people. They must know how to use it, and for that, what is very important is to take out the fear of technology from their minds. And that is what we have been aiming at and have been trying to achieve, even with our students, because they also come from similar backgrounds. So our focus has always been to remove the fear of technology and to enable them to learn it in a way as they would be able to become a good user without actually knowing how it works. And if few of them take up that challenge of knowing how it works, then of course we encourage them. And looking at that, I think we have been able to manage almost everything. The exams this year for us was also open book in that. I think most of the keywords which I have been listening here about it being transdisciplinary, about being all those technocentric is something which we have been able to achieve because design education per se is transdisciplinary. It is problem solving, it is project based, it is something which traditionally it is there. So we have been able to therefore manage a lot of things. However, we still feel that the new set of technologies which are now coming in, digital technologies, are a fresh challenge which we would need to look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Dr. Mahendra Sharma, your thoughts on the curation part?
In fact, it's a very interesting question. If we talk about what this digital has done is it has given access to a lot of open education resources, and there is an access to global pool of faculty. So if we look at from the teaching perspective, there has been a tremendous access which was otherwise limited has been opened up. So that has given a lot of possibilities of good quality content as well as knowledge coming from the best in the field. Only yesterday we had in our university Professor Jagdish Seth from Emory University. He addressed the students, and a week before Professor Parsuraman, who gave the GAPS model, talked to the students about services marketing. So it's like this phenomena has given that access. And probably there will be new methodologies evolving. But the new methodologies which will evolve have to now take care of parents as well as employers. So it won't be only about teachers and the students. Now it is about how employers would also take it, and how the parents whose roles have become important, how they are taking it and how to engage them. But what the gap which we are feeling is how do we fill in the gap for character building? What do we do for social values and national values that we want our students to have? And how those gaps would be filled in. Engagement, no doubt, is 24/7. Everyone is available. So, but then is it giving a next level of stress, which we don't want students to have? Is it that that relaxation time has somewhere gone, and which is also building into some kind of stress? So our worry is that technology has brought opportunities, but at the same time, how do we shed off the unnecessaries which are coming along with the engagement? So, when we look at the benefits of it, they are fabulous. In fact, learners today are more having more opportunities than at any other point of time. But when we talk about the hands-on skills, that is an area where there is a big question which is coming. And we used to say that if Corona was not there, the movement was like university inside industry and industry inside university, with startups happening in a very big way. So
Yeah.
Indian universities were not having startups, but last 6 years, the way the movement happened, we had startups and incubation centers across universities. And it was like we had industries, companies right inside university. And there were a lot of research labs which moved to the industry premises. In our own case, our VLSI and embedded program, MTech program, is housed inside eInfochips. So it's like their own premises, because they have huge research facility. So we thought, why to invest and develop? Let there be experts. Let's house it there, right inside the university and industry. So the new models would evolve, and education would see a transformation for which it has to now be prepared and engage in the new ways. And teachers' role, which is undergoing tremendous transformation, has to evolve. What kind of training would suffice is something which has to be thought about, because it's not only about their critical skills of the core domain of knowledge, it is about engaging with the technology. And when we say you will be engaging your teachers with technology and then blending it, there would be challenges coming. But one thing is for sure, blended teaching methodologies are there to remain, and it would be more evolved over the period of time. I am reminded of an article which I came across in which it was said that probably 50 years down the line, we will have virtual universities. There will be one scenario. Scenario two, brick and mortar won't exist. Everything will happen on company shop floors. So the teaching would happen right inside the industry, where there would be working and learning happening at the same time. And the third scenario, if we are not ready to change, we have to work with our existing models, which in any way is not going to remain, which Corona has demonstrated. So that is where we need to adopt, learn, and evolve in the process. And if you look at the economies, right now we are hearing a lot of Chinese and other manufacturers are shifting base to India. But then if you don't, universities, they don't upskill and they don't adopt technologies. Even if those manufacturers would shift, we won't be able to provide them the right manpower to sustain them. So that's the real competition with Vietnam, with Indonesia, with Malaysia, and those economies. Indian universities have to evolve. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mahesh Sharma. That's pretty exhaustive on the industry and the educational readiness from curation standpoint. Thank you for your insights. Dr. Malik, your comments, please.
Thank you, Mr. Nagaraju. Let me just say, and it's been really great listening to everyone on this particular area, because it's so crucial. And let me just preface my thoughts on this by saying that I think that universities have to be places that set out conditions inside which students, that they can discover what resonates with them, what excites them, what are they passionate about, to create those sort of conditions. And that is also a very critical component of learning. So how does one do that? I mean, some of the thoughts have been mentioned here, Professor Sancheti also. We set up more open and fluid systems in which students can begin to, design and explore different areas that interest them. And perhaps, you do something, for example, you take up music along with EI and philosophy. These are things that usually, perhaps in MIT you can do that, but maybe not at many Indian universities so far. And we would also have to begin to think in terms of new degree programs that we don't have yet, that reflect this kind of fluidity of being able to choose and design one's own degree. So far we have more or less, traditional BSc, BTech, BA, and so on and so forth. But how would the degree programs reflect this sort of fluidity? That's something that we need to think about, and also regulatory authorities, I think, still need to consider in what we can do. For example, we have at Kiyamangalam University, we've initiated over the last 2 years, a degree program called Digital Humanities, which is a fairly new area altogether. It's not necessarily it's a discipline, but it's the application of digital technologies to understand large quantities of data pertaining to humanities and social sciences, whether that has to do with migration or with literature or history and so on and so forth. So that's, again, for example, a new degree program. And I quite agree with also with what was said earlier, that we must be very wary of the suppression of talent. So creating systems in which, talent can grow. The whole point is to unleash and have students flourish. And, exam systems, evaluation systems must represent and reflect that. And I think there's already a lot of thinking that is going on in that sense. And in that sense also, faculty need to be retrained, because many faculty, including myself, we've come from a siloized, monodisciplinary training, our backgrounds in that. And so how does one break that down and create faculty who are sensitive to this new imagination of universities and higher education? That's a very, that's a challenge. I'm sure we can meet that challenge. So that's all I'd like to see at the moment. I think, opening up new worlds, giving students freedom to choose, design their degrees, and thinking about new degree programs will be part of how we curate, talent both for faculty and students.
Thank you, Dr. Aditya Malik. And it was actually a fairly enriching, informative pointers with a lot of tinge towards practicality and executional excellence. Thank you all the panelists for your views. Let me give you my bit on specifics from what we at industry think. I not only represent Adobe, but I also represent the FICCI Higher Education Task Force and a few of the ministry task force on the industry side of the fence. Point one, there is a necessity for tilting the entire gamut of learning outcomes from a practicality standpoint. In short, what we expect in the industry side of the fence is how can we bring in the applicability part of it to an extent of 80% at a university level, so that the problem solving part of it is ingrained to an extent of every breath that they take. That's the first aspect of it, because then the fabric of failure and unlearn and relearning from failure to success becomes a lot more easier when they're jumping into the industry aspect of it. Because traditionally what has been observed is that when they fail in an industry, because we push them straight into a zone of discomfort with high degree of difficulties as an area, and failure is not a bad term, and that's something that we've been trying to grapple with in terms of talent and talent molding towards delivering excellence when it comes to learning and delivering new success areas. Second aspect of it is continuous learning aspect of it needs to be clearly ingrained at all levels of our education system, and that is something that's probably missing, because there's a tendency towards studying only for the examination or a grades part of it. That becomes a very, very critical aspect, and probably the evaluation system and the new policies are helping, and most of you are also trying to figure out as to how you can make it a lot more broad-based evaluation patterns over a period of time in their 3 years or 4 years journey that they have in the university system. The last point of it is we all look for specific quotient of creating something new, innovative ideas. At the same time, ability to wear the shoes of an entrepreneur when we are hiring. At the same time, also looking at talent who can probably jump out, create new opportunities for themselves from an entrepreneurship standpoint. The need for entrepreneurship is more than ever now in a country like India, and at a time when we have a beautiful time zone where you can explode on the number of students you can address, number of potential learners you could address, because the word student is now transforming to learners. The word professor is now transforming to mentors as an area. With that, I like to end my few comments. Technology is not there for the heck of technology, but it's a super express highway. Please adopt it. No human can ever be replaced by technology. With that, thank you so much for being such a great sport and sharing your valuable views, opinions, and your best practices to the audience. Ravi, over to you. Thank you for the patience.
Excellent session. Thank you, Supreet, and all the eminent panelists who have given very nice perspectives. So thank you, Professor Sancheti. We're grateful for joining in. Thank you, Dr. Venkatesh. Thank you so much. Dr. Mahendra Sharma ji, namaskar. Thank you so much. Dr. Anand Samuel, thanks for joining. Professor Sanjay Gupta ji, great to see you after a long time. Thanks for joining. Professor Aditya Malik, thanks for joining. Namaskar. And
thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, Harsh, thanks for joining. Dr. Harsh, thank you so much. So with this, we will end this session here, and we will move on to the next session of this program. Thank you so much.